Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horrific review. Right, this one's a bit random, but story is I was vegging out yesterday because I was on live twice and I was on another podcast on Saturday, so right through to 4 a.m. So there's not much sleepy time for Colin. Sundays is like, okay, I don't want to think. I need something just to watch flashy things on the screen. Blade 2 popped up, and I'm like, God, was this as bad as I remember? Maybe I was just harsh on it. So pop Blade 2 in, and sure enough, then you go down the rabbit hole. So here we are. Thought I may as well talk about it, even though I'm being naughty because I've got two movies this week I have to write up notes for because I've got guests and you have to like pretend to be professional when you've people are giving their time to you. But here we go. Right. Spoiler alert. Yes, Blade 2 is bad. In fact, I would suggest it's worse. But anyway, let's go back to the start. Blade. 1998, late 90s, early 2000s, bit of a pivotal moment in movies. It's where they were reaching a peak before going the absolute dog shit. And I am so glad that all three of these movies, to be honest, were made before the MCU thing and comic books became a, state. What the hell they would have done with Blade if current day Disney Marvel got their hands on them? I don't know, and I dread to think. So thank goodness we got these three movies when we did. Even though the second one annoys me, it's still better than half the guff being pumped out today. But there you go. Right, so the first Blade, this is a straight up horror movie. No F buts or maybes. Yes, based on comic book, but believe it or not, there's loads of comic book horror movies, comic book horrors, and even within DC and Marvel, there's some dark material, which is cool. You've probably heard me talk about Dark Horse Comics a few times in streams. Some of our stuff's absolutely fantastic, and they really they don't hold back with the gore. But this this movie starts off obviously Blade's mother getting brought into hospital to see that there's a bite on her and she's passed away, and then it kind of closes out the present day in the universe. Yeah, straight out horror, no messing about, setting up a scene. Okay, this isn't fluffy. This isn't nice. This isn't cape wearing, spooky woohoo haha sort of stuff. This is it's gonna be gnarly. This movie, I think, has easily like one of the best intros ever in movies, and definitely in superhero movies. And what I'm talking about is where Bro Dude is being taken to the nightclub. Anyone who's watched this movie knows exactly what I'm talking about. Bro Dude meets attractive Russian girl. He's leading him on. He's like, "Hey man," all that kind of stuff. He's going through the abattoir, and even before he goes in, that was the thing when I first watched this the first couple of times. I never noticed the fact that this guy saw human bodies getting. They're all plasticed up. They're all wrapped up, and he kind of goes from one, what the hell was that? As he's getting led into the nightclub. Now anybody with two functioning brain cells, if you're being led somewhere dingy and it's got bouncers on a door and it's top secret, and you're like, yeah, I don't think I want to be drinking here. But of course, our girl, she's got him by the short and curlies, and she kisses him. He forgets everything. Oh, right, okay. The large brain disengages, the small brain switches on, goes to full, just full control mode. But yeah, that whole setup and the scene and the nightclub, and the fact that even as he's going in, he's trying to be Mr. Cool, and he's just getting bashed about the place and pushed, and it becomes very obvious very quickly he's not in a friendly place. And then we get the most epic scene, of course, of all, where the DJ's like, bloodbath, and then blood's out of the sprinklers. That, plus the music. God, who was it? I forget that. They're basically a one-hit wonder, anyway, and their whole career was made off this tune. One tune, Dance Act. Yeah, that tune's playing. Then we get the intro to Blade. You don't get better in that. You don't get better of a setup. You don't get better of all the elements tying in together, and also the fact that this is pure horror. They wouldn't do it today. Quite simply, you would not get that. You'd probably get something really weak, maybe a bit of digital blood, but this is just pure on like visceral, unadulterated. Them and they all reveal themselves. The ones that are vampires reveal themselves to the humans. That guess what? You're the snack. Brilliant. Easily, and if Wesley Snipes had done nothing else apart from this, would have made his career. You know what I mean? That's just being part of this. Absolutely fantastic. I remember making a joke not so long ago about the whole tax thing and that and how he just kind of vanished. And it wasn't out of nasty, it was just a shame because it's one of the last epic actors, that's had screen presence and actually talent as well, because he comes from a martial arts background and it shows. But yeah, you have this whole thing, that intro, there you go, hooked. If you just took this as the basis, just right, action movie, bloody brilliant, hits all the right beats. What it does well, it takes you up that level, you got the intro, and then it brings you back down. Then obviously, when it's all done, we'll meet Whistler, we'll meet his team, we'll sort of get his backstory, which is hinted at the start. And then we meet the vampires. To me, this was inspired, I think, by Vampire the Masquerade. More the story behind it as opposed to the RPG, but the idea of the agreement between vampires and humans, so there's not all out war, the rigid vampire society, and then you have the young blood. Deacon in this could have been about, I don't know, I think he could have picked a better actor. He was over the top, I think, in terms of being, cocky and I'm going to turn the tables up and blah, blah, blah. Is the way he swaggered about, the way he acted, and compare that to his research he was doing, didn't add up. He's, even watching it today, he's the only character in this that I didn't quite get. He needed a bit of refinement. To me, someone who's that studious and dedicated should have had a bit more of a fanatic edge to them, as opposed to just being party boy. So it didn't quite gel with his character. Now, if he had been manipulated by one of his underlings to do this with a promise of power, that would have made a bit more sense. But him as a character himself, it's still today just doesn't sit well. Just something about him doesn't fit with what he's trying to do. And even at the end, he's sort of the weakest part of this movie, which you can switch off. You can kind of switch that part off and still enjoy this whole thing. But like I said, just the character Deacon's the only letdown in the first movie. And of course, what we'll have here is basically younger vampires. No, and it's the whole thing between pure blood and turned vampires. So that was always an interesting dynamic. You've got vampires that are born vampires. They're the suppose the pinnacle of the race. Then you've got the rest, and there's that kind of resentment, which is that's played out 100 times over in Vampire Society. Me personally, I don't see anything attractive about being a vampire or part of that. The only other sort of franchise that did it just as well was Underworld. We have a coven of vampires because most vampire movies are single vampires. 30 Days a Night was a bit more animalistic. They were closer to a pack of werewolves than vampires, I think. Still a good movie, still a lot of fun, but you didn't have that societal thing. But with Blade, you have the whole hierarchy, the structure. You've got their own language. There's been a lot of details put into this for what could have been a throwaway action flick, loosely based on a comic book. This could have just been a nothing. The fact that from 1998 until today it still bloody holds up as a great movie kind of shows that there's a wee bit of love and care went into it. And Also, character investment. Wesley Snipes, he plays a stoic part, but he also lets out his other side, like the scene in the hospital. He's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Or something like that. To the police that come after him after watching a flipping they didn't know it was a vampire, but basically a zombie. Somebody that's been lit on fire, running away. Like the brains just didn't engage. But he has that kind of no nonsense, approach and just all for the mission about revenge. Uh, but yeah, the story is solid. It carries on. The pacing's good as well. You're not feeling any time that you're being overwhelmed with flashy lights like they do now. It's just flash, 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 image, no plot, and you're not watching anything. You're just kind of going through the motions, or not so slow. Like even the vampire scenes, that like the interplay and the interpolitics wasn't dragged out enough to take you away from the main plot. It was done well, and Deacon coming into bringing its plan to fruition and turning on the elders, and that just it all worked. And like I said, it's just the character. Deacon just not the actor's fault. I just think he was well cast in this one, but so be it. And then we'll get obviously everything comes to fruition. Find out the Blade's a key because he's a daywalker, which is he's a hybrid. He was born of a human and vampire, so he can walk in the daylight, and he just vowed to hunt them. And it's always in the back of his mind what happened to his mother, even though he never knew her really. And then that all plays out. But yeah, even if I had a bit of standalone movie left in his own, brilliant. And this is similar to there's something about this time in the 90s where movies like this were made, and they were made for the long haul. Think of this. Think of the Matrix. Think of think of Demolition Man. Actually, another one was this brilliant. Terminator. Terminator 1 and 2. Didn't Terminator 2 come out at this time? I think Terminator 2 was sort of around about this time as well. So you're getting movies like that, and they're made for the long haul. The people that made the movies want you to obviously back then buy the DVD. It just came out of VHS area, so they didn't just want you to go to the cinema once and forget about it. They wanted you to buy the DVD afterwards. They wanted you to buy the merch. They wanted you to be on board for the anniversary editions. This is something I think is missing from today's storytelling, especially with the big studios there. Everything's about to be forgotten. Forget this one after 5 minutes, concentrate on the next product, the next thing we're pumping out. That's kind of the mentality now, and it's suffering for it. Where I think the guys that made this, they had an idea that, okay, it's a one-off. People go to the cinema when it comes out, but we want long-term fans. You get that feeling anyway. How sometimes without saying anything, a piece of art or a piece of media speaks out through how it's made. I think this is basically a case of it. So yeah, on its own, fantastic. Just happens to be part of a trilogy, which obviously I guess with the success of the first one, is going to happen. Blade 2, normally it's the third in a trilogy. It's kind of like, but to me the second one was like the letdown. Blade 2, then it carries on after a while. It's still the same beats. It turns out that Whistler, who we thought had killed himself in the first one, had been actually kidnapped by the vampires, and they were holding him hostage, and Blade's busy tracking them. So you're getting that whole first search. Basically, it's a plot device to bring Chris Christopherson back, which, do you know what? Didn't mind. It wasn't horrible. I'm glad they didn't drag it out too long. So basically, they have him tracking, so at least it didn't just, oh, surprise, I'm back. When he finally finds him and rescues him, he uses the EDTA to cure him of the affliction because it only works in turned vampires, and then basically he says, right, in the morning I'm opening these blinds, you'd either be yourself or no more, sort of thing. And that was pretty much it. Done, dusted. And then Whistler's back. We'll meet this other flipping character, Scud. Oh, what a... I know he was designed to be an annoying arsehole, but oh my god, what a cliche. Of all the cliche characters to put in was this guy. And didn't warm during the start, and then when he did the betrayal, you weren't really surprised and you didn't care because you're just waiting for him to get wiped out. You just one of them characters that, like I said, I did not enjoy this movie as much. Wouldn't go to say that I hated it because I was able to watch it again. But it's one of them ones you just zone out. You watch it and you zone out. It's not really. It's a very weak addition to this franchise. So basically, what we found out is there's a new variant of vampire called Reapers that the genome oh god, was it mutates, and we've got this new vampire. The dumbest part of this movie was when representatives of the Vampire High Council break in the Blades complex. First of all, if you are coming with a message, anybody knows you go up to a castle and it's the same play. You don't sneak in through the window, go to the throne room, and then sneak up behind the king and go, I've got a message from your enemies. That's not going to go down well at all anywhere. But it was just an excuse to have this daft fight, just to initiate it, to get a bit of martial arts flicky stuff, which I don't know. There's no need for it. There's plenty of action in this movie. If I had them arrive at the gates, announce themselves, that sort of thing, yeah, it wouldn't have been showy and flashy, but to me, that took me out of the movie. Because all you're doing is getting spinny kicks, sword flashy stuff for no reason. Just to have a martial arts fight. And that's, I think at that even when I first watched this movie, like many, many years ago, that's what took me out of it. That first fight scene, because you're like, what are you doing? Especially when they say, whoa, stop, message, truce, blah, blah, blah. You're like, duh? What are you fighting for? And then they made the thing, oh, you shot first. Like, no, you're the one sneaking in. There's a way to do things, and these are supposed to be experienced people, But, yeah, he's then decides to go with them. And once again, if you're having a parlay between two parties, you don't bring them to your base. You don't bring them to your castle, if that makes sense. So they bring them straight to the High Lord, whatever, vampire, who is your classic underworld-esque vampire. I'm so old and ancient, I never leave these rooms. And the archivist, and it's like, yeah, you're a cliche, mate. So you don't buy that character either. I didn't anyway. They tell him about the Reapers show, or Reaper, sorry, and show him the footage and stuff. And then he's introduced to, ask the lead, the Blood Pack, of all the names. Jesus Christ, that, like, talk about cheesy. And then you've got big ugly dude, fucking Ron Perlman. He's an arse anyway. But yeah, you have these people. We've been trained to fight you, and you all look as cliche as possible. I was just like, nah, not feeling you. Then you have this weird scene, like they go on their first hunt and they're in a nightclub, and they're going to be fully tooled up, like with belt-fed machine guns and double drummed, and just going through it, and nobody's paying a bit of notice, as opposed to, oh, this ain't good. And even the Reapers that were there are looking at, and then these guys are just walking openly, so it's not even anything tactical about it. And then it just evolved into a farce. And their thing is, they got the mandibles that open up, and the tongue comes out, more like aliens than anything, but that was the gimmick. And yeah, What else? Because I got bored. I honestly, we'll get the inevitable betrayal, which we knew was going to happen. We knew these three because it was always going to kick off like that. We meet, God, what's the guy's name? It's Matt Goss played him, but him anyway. They start this weird thing of is not the enemy of my enemy, my friend, and then they just start fighting, and there's no interplay between them. When you think how tight the first one was and how they managed to mix the drama with the action together, and this one was just a complete farce. And this was Guillermo del Toro. So let's put in the comments. He directed the second one. David S. Goyer did the third, and Stephen Norrington did the first, who I'm not too familiar with. But Guillermo del Toro is a good director. What the hell did he do wrong with this? Evening, Chris. How are you? Hope you're ready for tomorrow because I'm not. Well, I'm typing up the notes. I jumped on to do this and then realized I have notes to type up. So I'll get them finished off about halfway done. I'll get them done tomorrow. Or, sorry, later on tonight for tomorrow. Yeah, just talking about these movies. I put them on. Yeah, Blade 2 still shit. It's the plot is paper thin. It's cheesy and it's what could have went wrong. If this had been the first one out, or they had went this direction in the first one, it wouldn't have. There'd be no Blade series. It would just be a more forgettable movie. Yeah, you have this weird betrayal, this back and forth that vampires are using gene therapy to create new strands, all that kind of stuff. But you're not really feeling it, honestly. It's just the way it's delivered just doesn't get you on board. The CGI as well. I have to mention the CGI. Like, there's a couple of dodgy CGI scenes in the first one, but you kind of forgive them because there was enough practical effects to balance it out. But the CGI in this one is god awful. This, I think, is one of the first movies we're getting introduced to jumpy along walls person that, looks like a cartoon, which is carried on to today. It hasn't got any better. Could you remember that Batman movie, Batman v Superman? You saw Batman doing this weird, like he's the freaking exorcist rolling along the top of the wall, and you're like, what the hell? You think it was this is the kind of stuff that where this started, and it's just terrible. But yeah, you go on, blah blah, fight, swish swish. The end happens. Even though there's betrayal, of course you have to have the big bad. Like, it's just like what could have happened was Blade and the Reaper guy took care of the father. Some maybe agreement could have been reached, I think, but it was so cliche that it was just okay. It was like a video game. Okay, here's the next body. Here's the end of level body. The end. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Blade 2. It was still the worst one. It's not a good movie. It's only watchable because of Wesley Snipes' performance, to be honest. He's the only one. Christopher not too bad, but it's Wesley Snipes that sort of holds this movie together because, yeah, not good. Which is weird because then we go on to Blade Trinity, and you'd think after the second one they would have went, nah. And like I said, normally with trilogies, it's always the third one's worst. But this one was actually pretty decent. We're seeing now that Blade's been doing this a long time, and it's gone on so long that even the human population's aware of him. Because obviously the vampires operate in public spaces and that, and there's reports, and I said it's went on for a while, which is fair enough. But then we're seeing the vampires are getting a bit clever. They understand that if they turn because the humans are aware of him, if they turn the humans against them, then they don't have to do as much work, and they're still because he's obviously effective, so they're still terrified of him. Which after the events of the first one and the fact that failed bringing back the blood god, on the second one, you think by this stage that have retreated. Like vampires are supposed to play for the long game, but they're just acting exactly the same, which is kind of disappointing. You would think that they would like retreat for 100 years and then come back out and carry on, but nah, apparently not. Yeah, this is where he accidentally killed a human because they've set him up to do it. They've put enough whispers in with the police and the FBI that he's just a serial killer that has a fixation. He's captured. They know where he is. He's captured. Whistler gets killed. Oh, excuse me. And then Blade's taken into custody. He finds out that the the psychiatrist who's going to recommend he gets, busy locked away, is a familiar. The police chief's a familiar, so we're seeing that it's basically a vampire operation using humans. And what else? This is where we meet the Night Stalkers. Like some of these names to come off with. Yep, there are 3 movies. They're worth a they're always worth a revisit. Like I said, the first one's absolutely fantastic, top notch. If that movie had just got made on its own, it could have survived. Done nothing else. These other 2, they don't take away as much. Like Blade Trinity, that's one I'm talking about, is watchable. It's a fun action flick, but we've kind of lost the horror of the first one, and they've who is it with me? Hannibal and Abigail. They're doing the same thing that Blade does. It's like another team setup. I think this is one of the first times I've seen Ryan Reynolds in a movie. Thankfully, it was that long ago that we hadn't got oversaturated with Ryan Reynolds, so his wisecracks and that were pretty decent. I think if this movie, like if they made this now and Ryan Reynolds came back, you'd just be like, oh god, not him again. He does have that kind of effect. Ryan Reynolds is one of them actors, is okay in small doses, but just repetitive. But what will also have the plot is they're basically looking for Dracula himself. And they've got this, and this is where this is kind of cheapened because you've got the vampires, you've got this super serious scene. They're all dressed up in high tech suits, so the sun doesn't affect them. You've got the slow moving music, and then you have one of them throwing the finger up at the sun. And you're like, why'd you do that? That just cheapens. You've just spent all this time in a setup, and to be really serious about an expedition, and vampires are, they can move about, they know what they're doing, and then you have somebody go, bah. It's like that Deacon character. It's like, why? And this is where I kind of, it takes me out of the movie, if that makes sense. It seems like that just is trying to devolve it into like something base, and especially when you're looking for Dracula. Now, the scene when the first encounter Dracula is horror. The difference is instead of him hunting humans, he's hunting other vampires. Because they basically wake him out of a slumber, and he's not too impressed. God, who else? The main antagonist in this, I forget her name. She's a bit of a cliche. They've got a bloody wrestler in this as well, so the IQ of the room drops immediately. Once you put a wrestler in something, the IQ just hits the ground. But yeah, they're kind of comical. Now you have Dominic Purcell playing Dracula, or Drake, saying, he's had many names, so he's going by Drake. He's all right. But to me, he's not Dracula. He's just a big hulking dude. Dracula was never about physicality. Dracula was about power. So you kind of know this is just something set up to fight Blade. We're going to get a big beef fest, at the end. And I kind of realized on. Now we get a wee bit of play. Now when Dracula goes after the Night Stalkers, he goes after Blade, and you see how ruthless he is. And it's this point where Blade's beating the vampires at every turn, and he's like, "Oh, time I joined the game," and then things ramp up. And the scene where he actually infiltrates, goes into their base, brilliant. It's done with tension and horror. We could have done a bit more of that. And the goofiness maybe set to the side. It's the goofiness that kind of takes you out of this. But it's the serious moments of horror, and it's Dominic Purcell's, actions as Dracula is what keeps you on board. Where in Blade 2, you didn't have any of that at all. Where at least in this one, him being the the busy overlord of all vampires, works when he's the one taking the lead in screen time. The problem is the rest of the cast that play vampires are shit, and you don't really. I mean, they're cannon fodder, and that's the problem when you've got too many cannon fodder actors or characters. It's you just kind of switch off a bit, but not a terrible movie. Like I said, it's better than the second one. If this had been Blade 2 instead, I think the franchise would have had a better chance, and if they had dialed back some of the goofiness, then you would have had a really dark set of movies here with a gripping, with enough wisecracks to give you levity and brief moments of levity, brief moments of comedy just through wisecracks. That it brings down the tension. I don't know what they could have done with the second one to bring it up. But this goes on, you've got a virus that's going to wipe out all our kind. The deliberate big boss battle. Drake leaves an important gift that he'll never beat the thirst, and he's the future of the vampire race. Then it kind of, goes off into sunset from there. But yeah, not the worst, as a third part in the trilogy, as a sequel, wasn't too bad. If it just dialed back in the goofiness a bit, this, it would have had more or less the same beats or the same atmosphere as the first one. The second one, I don't know what you could have done. It's too many cheeseball characters again. Like the vampires in it are terrible. They're how do I put it? I was going to say comic book characters, but it is based on the comic. But they're ridiculous, same as the ones in the third one, where the vampires, like I said, Deegan in the first one, I didn't 100% buy because the actor playing him, but him being the sort of party vampire and the fact that his actions are causing ripples and they're not happy with them in the main vampire community, that was all brought across very well. And at least when the rest of them, it was time to stop goofing about and be serious, they switched. So you saw that you were dealing with dangerous predators. Whereas in the second and third ones, you didn't get that from the vampires at all. In the second one, you didn't get it whatsoever. At least the third one made an attempt, like I said, with Dracula's character himself. I think we talked about this in the Dracula in cinema. There is something that the minute you say Dracula's going to be in a movie, I think everyone switches gears, and it's easy. It's simply a case of, right, this is the character you have to treat with respect. We cannot disrespect the Dark Lord. Honestly, I really do think that happens. And even watching this again, yeah, I'd say that was the case. Just if he had just been another vampire, I think he would have been a cheesy character. But the fact is, I'm playing Dracula. Oh, I better do this right. And the director's like, we're using Dracula, we better do this right. And you can see that attempt being made. But all in all, like, I binged these on Sunday. And it wasn't like, holy, yeah, I was wasting time, but it wasn't like I went, oh, can I have those 3 hours back or 4 hours back? I enjoyed myself. Even the picking at the second one, I was able just to have it on in the background. It's a popcorn, switch your brain off, let the flashy lights happen on screen, and don't really think about it. The third one, a bit the same, but there's enough, like I said, there's enough dark moments in it to make you pay attention. So there you go. Yeah, just randomly end up revisiting this series, even though I have 2 movies to rewatch for this week, and in a short order, because I've got obviously Brotherhood of the Dice on Wednesday, so I'm not going to be sleeping much. So when you see me Thursday, I'm going to be like this, eyes on stalks. But are you really making art if you're not suffering for it? Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Bit of fun. Nice to revisit something after a while. Let me know if you've rewatched these, if you've seen them recently. Be interesting to hear your thoughts. Do they hold up? Do you agree with me on that they still hold up, even the sequels after this time? What could be done better? Am I being over harsh, over critical? Have you other suggestions? As I said, leave in the comments so we can have a wee chat about it and revisit an old classic. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Keep up the other channel. I'm on tomorrow night with Chris. I'm on Thursday night with Dale. I've stuff on this weekend. Can't remember off the top of my head. And definitely I'm on Dragonlance Saga again for some second edition D&D. With Brotherhood of the Dice on Wednesday for Call of Cthulhu. So all will go. Busy time, so keep up the channel, do the tiny things. Until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.